Francis, how are you?
Hi, Becca. I'm good, and you?
Good. So I'm really excited to welcome Francis Bouvier, the co-founder of Lightpanda, which for those of you who don't know is a headless browser designed for AI automation. And he's going to walk us through a really interesting talk. So I'll kick it over to you and I'll dip out so you can take over the screen.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So today we are going to speak about how the world is going to evolve with AI. So I'm going to share some screens right now. Yeah, great, perfect. So today 50% of web traffic comes from machines, but it wasn't always like this. So the web was designed for humans, and it started with simple HTML web pages, and then it evolved to what we know now, really complex applications like Gmail, Figma, Google Meet. And to evolve towards this kind of complex applications, the web browser had to support this transition through a lot of new web APIs. So there are hundreds of web APIs right now, and new ones emerge every day to support increasingly complex use case in the browser. And if we take a bit of history of the web browser, Chrome and all Chromium-based browsers out there are using Blink as a rendering engine, which is a fork of WebKit used in Safari, which is itself a fork of Conqueror and HTML, which was a Linux browser in the 90s. So most of this infrastructure today is based on code from 2 decades ago, which is not a problem per se, but of course it was not built for machines. So where does the 50% of web traffic come from? So it's coming from, of course, indexing, search engines like Googlebot, and what we can call traditional scraping, data extraction for e-commerce, for lead generation, use aggregator, travel, all these kind of use cases. And of course, the emerging use cases of AI for training, of course, but also for chatbot search and of course, AI automation workflows. So web automation in the past was quite simple when the web was simple. So it was just HTML web pages. So a simple HTTP request through tools like curl was enough to retrieve data. But now, of course, all those complex applications are using JavaScript, and JavaScript is everywhere. So you have to use tools like Puppeteer, Playwright, Selenium, which were basically at the beginning mostly testing frameworks, and they all use mostly Chrome underneath through what we call the headless browser. So headless browser is basically the exact same thing than the browser that you are using in your computer or smartphone, except it does not display the user interface. But it has everything else, including the graphical rendering, so you can ask for a website, for a screenshot of the website. But of course, those use cases are going to be more and more important with the AI, and the problem with this kind of traditional architecture is that it doesn't scale very well, and that's why AI crawlers for now do not use a real web browser, then they don't use JavaScript, And because it does not scale and it's a lot of requests, right now it's almost a third of Googlebot volume, and it's going to be to increase a lot in the next years, of course. So the fact that you can put AI with a browser makes a lot of power, of course, but it requires JavaScript execution to be accessible. So how does it scale? So LLM have a lot of obstacles to scale the traffic, and it's basically the same obstacles that traditional scrapping and use cases. So a website can be complex, and it's difficult for LLM to reason on the websites, and of course a lot of them, as I was saying, requires JavaScript execution, and the agent has to control the full browser instance, which is quite complex, and it, of course, it can be really expensive on compute. So should we rebuild the web for AI agents? So there is really two paths on that. Websites can adapt a bit, like they adapt to mobile rendering, so with the better meta tags and things like that, and to be sure that the content is well rendered, and of course with new protocol and conventions like LLM.txt. And I think also that some maybe big websites can also have AI API versions, maybe through MCP support. But of course, most of the web is going to stay as it is. So browsers have to adapt also, and they can adapt by eliminating all the elements that are human facing. So they can be easy, scalable. It can be embedded on device and optimized for AI. For automation, LLM-friendly output to put the content in a prompt, and most generally for better control of LLM and agents. So this is what we are doing in Lightpanda. So we took the exact same kind of architecture than Chrome, building from scratch. And the main difference with the classic headless browser is that we did remove the graphical rendering engine, which allows us to have a browser that is 10 times faster than Chrome headless and 10 times lighter. So it means that for the same resource, basically you can have 100 more throughput. And well, this is an open source web browser, and it's really built from scratch for this purpose. So the question of evolving the web is not really like we are going to have this adaptation, and we need the infrastructure to be built around that, and to let the LLM really drive the web. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Awesome. Thank you so much, Francis. That was super interesting. We have a couple minutes here. So just wanted to do a little bit of Q&A and talk about some of the things that you just talked about. Also, to everyone watching, feel free to drop any questions you have for Francis into the chat, and we can answer some before the next session. One of the things I was curious about is, given that I think you said something like roughly 50% of web traffic is now from machines, or will be. What timeline do you see for web infrastructure fundamentally changing? to kind of accommodate AI needs?
Yeah, so I think, of course, we have several steps. So right now we can see the first step with also with MCP, and we can see the first step, which is really more on the how we can take a website and have the LLM work on how in our behalf. We have seen a lot of demo out there in the past weeks with the operator or open source version like a browser use. So I think this is like the atomic, I would say, first step. But of course, the other step right after that is to be able to scale, because we will have billions of requests of that. And this is something that needs to have, we really need to have that in mind. So something that is really high in compute or really slow to execute will not be able to scale. So it's really good to have this first step, just to say, okay, this is what we can do, what is possible, and it's just the beginning. But of course, we have to see that in a more long-term way to be able to scale.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That makes a ton of sense. The other question I had was, this is a pretty broad question too, but like, how do you see websites adapting to become more, let's say, AI friendly without compromising kind of like the human user experience? Are there any things in particular that you think are really important, sort of like frameworks or just things that folks really need to think about when kind of moving towards that future?
Yeah, so I think one of the big problems between a web page and an LLM is the size and the noise of a web page. So when you try just to take what is the raw HTML of a web page and you put that in a context window of an LLM, you have a lot of tokens and you have a lot of noise. So this is one of the I think most important challenge. So of course you can just do some kind of a cleanup of the HTML, but websites can really help by maybe through meta tags or stuff like metadata, but just to say, okay, this part is the part that is relevant for this kind of use case. So if you take just a simple e-commerce web page, for example, you have several blocks on it. You have the main product, and then you have the other kind of product, the lookalike and stuff like that. And it's important to reduce all that noise to just be on the main thing that you want to work on. And it's the same for different kind of web pages. And the best people to say what is important or not is a website creator itself. So I think that with this kind of just a few meta tags, you can really help the agents to be more useful and determinist.
Cool. Francis, thank you so much for joining. This was really interesting. Really appreciate you being a part of this GLOSAIC hangout. Hope you.
Thank you very much.
Of course.